So 2 days ago, I uploaded a video about how some streamer named Katie Bugs was accusing GeorgeNotFound, who is a Minecraft YouTuber, extremely fucking popular, part of like the Dream SMP server and like good friends with Dream and all that stuff. He was being accused of sexual assault by this woman, and she came out on stream and she made this whole heartfelt message, and she like described in her own details about what happened. And then there was also people, well, at first, she didn't actually say it was GeorgeNotFound, but it was people who that were like on Twitter who ended up speculating that it what turned out to be him that she was talking about. And then there was a whole bunch of her friends that were coming out and were backing her and talking about how, like, you know, they were there and they saw what happened and that GeorgeNotFound was, like, you know, assaulting her. From this story at first, it didn't look good for George. It really didn't. There was text messages. There was a lot of people coming out saying that were there and they experienced it and they saw what happened, and that what she was saying was true. And then GeorgeNotFound himself, he came out on Twitter and he said that he was going to defend himself on stream and saying that he was getting information together and he was going to come out and he was going to give the truth. But he didn't actually stream that day. And when I saw that he didn't stream, I was like I was speculating a little bit. I was just like in my first video, and I recommend going watch that just to get a little bit more context about like what she said and my initial thoughts and everything, just because I'm going to be covering like the update for everything and like mainly what George is saying and give my like updated opinion on all of this. But George didn't stream that day. And when he didn't, I was a bit skeptical. You know, I was in the middle ground still. Like I said in my first video, I was in the middle ground and I was still just like, I'm going to give the girl the benefit of the doubt because I don't want to completely neglect the fact that, you know, I don't want to say like she's accusing someone of sexual assault, and I don't just want to come out and say like, hey, I don't believe this chick whatsoever. But at the same time, I was just like, I'm not going to like, you know, say that 100% it happened. So I was sitting in the middle ground. I was like, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, I'm going to wait to hear for when GeorgeNotFound finally says something. But I was a bit skeptical. I was just like, he said he was going to stream, but he hasn't come out. And then he came on stream today. So he did start a stream, but he played a pre-made video. And at the start of that, because it's now on his GeorgeNotFound Streams YouTube channel, which I will say that he said that he deactivated all like donations on his stream, but if he got subbed at some point during that stream, that he was going to donate them all to charity. And at the end of the video as well, that's on his YouTube channel, he said that he's going to be donating all of the money that gets made from that video to sexual assault victims and charities for that, which I think is absolutely great. But he said that he didn't stream initially on that day because he didn't feel comfortable streaming at first and that he wanted to get a few more details in place, which I think is absolutely fine. So I'm going to like roughly go over things that happened. I've written down like in dot points, kind of like major things that happened throughout the night and kind of like, you know, what George pretty much said. But if you want to go watch his full video, it's like 25 minutes in total. So really it's not that long, but I recommend going to watch his. I'll probably link it down below if you want to go watch the whole entire thing. Like I said, it's only like 25 minutes long. So it's really not all that long of a video. Not like when I had to watch Dreams one, which was like 2 to 3 hours long. That one was fucking insane. To try and summarize everything that happened, GeorgeNotFound interacted with Katie Bugs 2 times during VidCon, which is where all this supposedly, well, where not just supposedly, where all of these accusations like had gone down from. And they met at Dream's hotel room. The reason why they met in Dream's hotel room, which is not just like a small hotel room, like his hotel room's bigger than my fucking bedroom. It's probably like, you know, 3 times as big as my bedroom. You know, it is Dream. So he has like, you know, big hotel, a decent sized hotel room with like living room and couches and obviously like a separate bedroom and all that stuff. It's not just like one of those hotel rooms where you walk in and it's just a bed and nothing else. And they were all in like this massive group chat. You can go into George's video. I'm not going to bother putting up text messages that he's put up. Like I said, if you want to, recommend go watching that because he does show group chat text messages. He does show evidence of everything, like, you know, of actual hard evidence of what he's talking about in terms of like things that he can grab from text messages. So at first, this group of people who were like Katie's friends were trying to first get Dream to come out to a party. And this was when Dream was like very much still wearing his mask and he didn't really like going out in public so much. He had revealed his face at this time, but he still wasn't comfortable like going out in public, which is absolutely like that. There's nothing wrong with that and absolutely fine. And he was just like, no, I don't want to like go out to this. So they insisted if they could come over to like his hotel. They were like, oh, we still want to hang out. Can we come over? Dream was like, yeah, that's fine. Come over. And all of them were hanging out. And at this point, when all this was going on, they were playing drinking games. Katie states that they were being forced to drink, that they were the ones who were like, you know, Dream and George were like forcing Katie and her friends to like drink alcohol, but actually it was Katie's friends who insisted to play drinking games with them. Like, Katie and her friends were the ones who wanted to play the drinking games, and they were the ones who insisted on doing so. And at this point, sometime throughout the night, Katie claims that George started to flirt with her, and that apparently she felt uncomfortable because of the age difference. But there was no point during this night where Katie stated that she was 18, which I have to say, even though it's 18 and you are freshly 18, you are still relatively young, it is legal age of consent. But at the same time, she did not mention this to George at any point, who was 26 years old at the time. He's probably like, I don't know, he might be a bit old. He might be like 27 at this point, because I know on my previous video, I know that Katie is now 19. But he also assumed that she was 21, which is not good to assume. But at the same time, he assumed that she was 21 because even though George is from the UK, this was in the US. And before she got to the hotel, to Dream's Hotel, she was out at a VidCon after party drinking, where the legal age in America for drinking is 21. In every state in America, when it comes to the legal age for drinking, it is 21. And there was also people at this after party, at this VidCon event, that were wearing bracelets. And George shows it in his video to show evidence that they were wearing bracelets that stated that they were over the age of 21. So when all this information is given to you, you automatically are going to assume that that person that you were with, that person that's in the room with you, whether you're flirting them or not, that they are over the age of 21. And he also states that, like, during this first night, nothing actually happened and that everything was friendly. And then it's the second night where the supposed sexual assault is where it took place. So everything started off basically the same as the first night, where this group wanted Dream to come out, and Dream was just like, no, I don't want to come out. But they insisted on wanting to still hang out with Dream. So they wanted to go over to Dream's hotel room, which happened the same thing. And the same thing happened as the first night, where they wanted to insist on playing this drinking game. They even sent a game through the text message. It was like a most likely to app game, which I have seen that before. I've seen games like that before, and I've actually played games like that before, where it's like drinking games. It's like, who's most likely to do this? And then you'll have to guess who it is, and then that person has to drink. And throughout the night, you know, they were all drinking. All of them were drunk. So it's not just like she was the only one that was drunk and all of them were sober. No, all of them were drinking. All of them were drunk. There was no pressuring. They were all just playing these drinking games. And at some point, they made their way to the couch, and George just happened to sit next to her. And when he sat next to her, they were joking around. They were laughing. And at no point did she indicate to him that she was uncomfortable. And she says that in her video, she brought up this phone game to try and like make it out and try and like excuse herself for being awkward and tried to like make it off like, hey, I don't want to interact with them. But she actually brought out this phone game, and they were like all like sharing this game around. Like they were all trying to get the high score once someone like finished their round. I don't know exactly what kind of game it was, but then she would hand her phone off to someone else and they would play it. And it was actually weeks after this, she was actually sending him updates through Messenger, like messaging him updates of new high scores as well. So it's not like, you know, it was just that night. Like she kept on going with this after things happened. And slowly throughout the night, they started to like cuddle for a while. And it wasn't that like they just cuddled and then supposedly where Katie said that he all of a sudden like put his hand underneath her clothes. They started cuddling, and at no point did she make it out that she was uncomfortable with this. She also did state in her video like that she said at some point throughout the night, she did state her age and that she was a virgin during a game. But George said that he didn't have any recollection with this, that there was a lot of people in the hotel room and there was a lot of different things going on. So he probably was off somewhere else in somewhere part of the room. Or when you're drunk, you don't remember shit. Come on, like you can't remember every fucking thing that goes on when you're drunk. You don't remember nothing. And then she stated that at one point he like slipped his hand underneath her clothes really subtly. But actually it was him, just like, you know, they were cuddling and then he was like had his hand up above her clothes, and that he just like was like, you know, very, very slowly just moved his hand underneath her clothes just on her waist. Just on her waist. So that was it. It was not sudden at all. And he was trying to make sure that she wasn't uncomfortable in any way, and made sure that things like tried to naturally like progress slowly. I don't know if you've ever been intimate with a girl that you don't know, or that you're like trying to flirt with, and you're trying to like, you know, see if they are interested in with you, and then you start cuddling them and you slowly, and if they at some point like move away, then yeah, that's an indication to you that did. But she didn't do that. She at no point did she like seemed to say like, oh, this is making me uncomfortable. She just kept going on with it. As a matter of fact, she was like, they were messing with each other with this game, and the whole time, like, when they were playing this game on her phone, they were like trying to like mess each other up by knocking each other or punching each other, or like, you know, kind of like play fighting. And she was laughing and smiling during this whole time, and she was actually fighting back against him. And at some point throughout the night, her best friend who was in the room there left, but Katie actually insisted that she stayed back. And she did. She stayed back for a while, and then they eventually all left, which was George and Katie, I think, were like the only two left. They left because Dream wanted to go to sleep, and she was actually staying on the same level as Dream was, but she walked him to the elevator. She walked him to the elevator, and then that was it. That was the last time George ever met with her. That was the last time he ever saw her in person. After this, they happened to message. After this, so they were messaging each other for weeks on end. And, you know, a lot of the messages, they weren't like any malicious, any sexual things. A lot of them were just like friendly, and a lot of them were banter. And he said that once he found out her age after VidCon, he actually stopped talking to her and didn't pursue anything. That's basically a summary. I know that that's a long summary, but that's a lot to take in. And once I saw his video, and once I like went back and thought about like what she had to say, this is my whole thing. And he even states it at the end of his video, is that she didn't make it out like during when all of this was happening, which the only things that happened was them cuddling, and the most sexual thing that he did was place his hand underneath her shirt. Which, I mean, maybe when you're 18, you find that somewhat uncomfortable. But just remember, he was drinking with her the whole time, and she came from a VidCon event where he automatically thought that she was over the age of 21. But as an 18-year-old, that might seem to you a bit like, oh my God, someone's like touching me. And during the time when all this happened, is that she seemed comfortable with this. Now, silence itself is not consent, which I saw someone say this in the comments. Silence is not necessarily consent, but at the same time, that is not assault. There is no thing that happened during these events that George stated, and I am going to have to believe this man in this point, because he gave a very good explanation of what went down with hard text message evidence, and he went down in full detail of his whole entire recollection of the night, and not any part of this. To me, it seems like what she actually said in her video was somewhat true, but she stretched the truth to make out like George was a worse person than what he actually was, and that during the time when all this actually went down, she was fine with it and comfortable with it. But it's also stated that apparently Katie's friend group doesn't necessarily like George's friend group. So even though she was comfortable with this during this time, it may have seen that afterwards, after all this had happened, whether it's a day after, weeks, months, or even a fucking year after all this happened, it seems that now she is kind of regretting it, regretting that all that happened, and that like when she looks back at it, she's kind of just like, oh, I wish I didn't do that, which is absolutely fine. But that's not assault. That is not just because you regret a situation which during the time you are fine with and you don't have any negative feelings against it, and then later on you look back at that and you go, I wish I didn't do that. I wish I regret doing that. That's fine regretting it, but that does not count as assault. And George even mentions in his video that he himself has had a situation like that. And I can actually relate to George on that. I myself have had a situation just like George where I have had a sexual relationship with someone in the past, a sexual experience with someone, and during the time I consented to that and I was fine with it. But now that I look back on it, I would take that back. I have multiple like that. Like I have multiple situations in my life with certain partners, like whether it's relationship or just casually, and I look back on it now and I'm just like, fuck, I wish I kind of like regret doing that, and I wish I didn't do it. But I wouldn't go ahead and say that those women assaulted me. No, sure, I consented to that, and during it I was fine with it. But looking back on it, yeah, I kind of regret it, but I wouldn't go ahead and call it assault. No, it's not. It's just something that you did. You look back on it, you're like, fuck, I wish I didn't do it with that person. But she's making it out like he assaulted her, which from what he has said and from the evidence that he has shown, and like I said, now that we have both sides of the story and that I can finally make my consensuous decision on this, because like I said in my first video, I was very much in the middle where I was just like, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt, But at the same time, I want to wait to see what he has to say. And I have waited for what he has to say. And from all what he has said and all the text message evidence, how could you not make it out like, of course she's stretching the truth? Of course she fucking is. And I hate this shit. I said it in my first video as well. I despise people who sexually assault others. I feel so bad for victims, actual victims who get sexually assaulted. And I hope that all victims out there are believed and that they are getting their help. But there's one thing that I hate more than someone who sexually assaults someone. I hate when someone lies about a situation like this. I fucking despise, which is why I always like to give the victim the benefit of the doubt, and I always like to believe the victim more than like the other person at first, because I hate it. I hate when someone comes out and lies about sexual assault, not just because they are putting someone else's life in jeopardy, where they are saying this person has sexually assaulted me, and they are possibly, going to put this person in a bad light, which they don't deserve. But I also hate people who lie about sexual assault because it's actually taking away the light from people who are actually getting sexual assaulted, and then it's making people out in the world second guess when a victim comes out and say, hey, I was sexually assaulted. When we hear lies like this, it makes us go, wait, did this next victim that we hear, did they actually get sexually assaulted? Because the last one that we heard was a lie or a bit of a stretch of the truth, or that person just actually regretted it later on, but it actually wasn't sexual assault. Then we're actually going to be second guessing victims, which we shouldn't have to do. It's a shit world that we live in, that so many people are coming out lying about their experiences, saying that they were assaulted, when a matter of fact it was just them regretting a certain situation. So at this point in time, I'm gonna have to lean towards more of GeorgeNotFound's side. I have to. But if she could come out with some harder evidence and show that no, he himself is actually the one who's lying, and he did actually fully sexual assault me, and I was telling him no, and he kept going towards me, and I was making it obvious that I was uncomfortable and all that stuff. Unless she can come out and say that he was the one lying, I have to go with him on this situation. I have to. At no point did it make it out like he was the one who was lying. And I got to believe him on this point. But I'd like to hear what you guys think about this down below. This situation is completely iffy. And man, this should not have happened altogether. None of this should have happened. I should not have had to make videos about stupid shit like this. But let me know what you guys think about this down below. That's it from me. Peace out.